Hey losers, I'm Coral. Welcome back to my channel! And I would like to introduce you to the reason there has been no content on my channel for weeks. This is Sabbath. She is our new puppy. She was a gift, so it's been, I mean, we've known about it for a couple weeks, but it's been a little bit of an adjustment, and my cats fucking hate her, and she is high maintenance, let's just say. So it's been, I mean, there's just been like absolutely no time for me to, she can't be unsupervised, and also she cries when she's in her crate, so it's been rough. It's been rough. We're trying to adjust. She's smart though. She's smart. She learns tricks really fast, but her behavior is terrible because she's a puppy and she literally does not even know what the word no means. So I just wanted to introduce her really quick. Hopefully someday she'll be not so stupid and like maybe she can sit with me while I'm filming. But for now I have to put her in her crate. So if you hear any crying puppy noises, that's why. She just can't be around here, especially like my cats are here. Fang Fang's behind me. Fang Fang has chased her like 3 times since I turned the fucking camera on. It's been chaos here. It's been chaos here. So I'll be right back, okay? Seriously, I can tell right now that this video is gonna be oh my god. I'm like barely holding on to my sanity here. Anyways, once again, this is Fang Fang. She's been causing problems this morning, starting with the fact that she gets upset with my old cat Salem, who, like, it's Salem's fault. He chases her and he shouldn't. She doesn't like it. And she like runs and she does this like growl where she like snorts at the end. It'll be like like that, which is hilarious because she's a tiny little piggy, and sometimes he will bother her so much that she poops. And I went to pull something out of Sabbath's mouth earlier and it was a juicy wet cat turd. So it's like, it's been terrible. It's been so terrible. I'm like, I'm barely holding on there right now. And of course all the cats want to be near me right now, but like Fang Fang also starts fights with everybody. She starts fights with Crash, who's here being a monster too. Oh, remember this cute little thing? He's not so, well, he's still pretty little, but he's mostly bad. He's mostly bad. But he lets me hold him like this, so that is a plus. Don't worry, I don't hurt him. He's weird, he's a weird little noodle. So anyways, enough. Oh my god, I might just have to cut like the last 5 minutes out of this. So anyway, I'm here today with the books that I ended up reading. Crash! Do I look like I'm losing my will to live? I mean, I'm not really, but fuck, these guys have been driving me nuts. It's like, it's this constantly. I can't do anything. It's like, and that's, here, look, this is my wrap up for the month. I didn't really read much because every 5 seconds there's an animal doing something stupid that I have to deal with. And also I'm in school, and also I'm a parent, and also I'm a partner, and like, boy, let's get on to the books that I read. So in total this month, I read 5 books, which totaled in 2,226 pages, which is about 85 pages per day. I read 1 book that was like a smutty paranormal romance. I read a sci-fi book, 2 horror books, and a true crime book. So a little broader spectrum than my last few months where I've been reading mostly horror books. The oldest book I read this month was published in 1974. Then we jumped to 2018, 2021, 2022, and a 2023 release. Let's see, I've been keeping track of like if I'm reading any series, and this month I did finish the book in a series, the last book in the series, so that's pretty cool of me. And now we can get on to what I read. Excellent, great. All right, first here is The Man with the Candy, The Story of the Houston Mass Murders by Jack Olsen. This was published in 1974. This is a true crime book about Dean Corll, who murdered many boys and young men. I think when his crimes were discovered, ignore the cat fighting noises. Fang Fang cannot mind her own business. When his murders were discovered, at that point he had the record for the most murder victims at that point in the US, and that was topped by John Wayne Gacy a few years later. So this book was written like very shortly after Dean Corll was found out. Oh boy, it is a really complicated, sad story where this man, Dean Corll, he used drugs and money and sometimes sex to entice young boys in, and then like the sex kind of played a part where it made them ashamed for what they had done, because he would pay them for you know, sexual activity and stuff like that. He was a pedophile. He preyed on young men and young boys, and it got to the point where he was murdering them, and there were two young men who helped him kind of collect boys and then bury them, because that was the thing, is he had this boat shed and a couple other areas where they would bury bodies, and it was a mass grave. It was pretty terrible. I think this book was really well written. It doesn't get too much into the torture of these boys, which I appreciated, because it was just like really sad enough. Without all that, it talks about the lives of the boys before they went missing, and sometimes like the parents would get a call from their boy who's been gone for a few days. Their son would sound panicked, and then, you know, the call would cut off, and I just like, ugh, that the few scenes in that where that happened in this book where that happened to parents, it's like that, especially of all of it, I think like just really made my heart sink. Like I cannot imagine getting a call from my child, knowing something that is wrong already, hearing panic in their voice, and then I don't know where they are. It's just gone. And it's like my worst fears are confirmed, and there's nothing for me to do about it. So a very, very sad book, told really well. I read that Jack Olsen was at one point a journalist, which I think really that shines through in his work, because this isn't just a story about this man. It's a story about the boys who went missing around him, who were found murdered, of their families, what their families went through to find their children, and of this, well, Houston itself, but more specifically this little part of Houston called the Heights, which was a impoverished part of the city where, man, it was like 2 miles of area or something like that, where 29 boys went missing, and within like 3 years. So it's like, how the fuck did this not, how did, you know, and it goes into like probably why this was not discovered sooner and things like that. One of those being that Dean Corll was kind of like a small pillar of the community. He just was really looked upon favorably by the people who knew him and stuff like that. So this was a really great true crime story. One thing I will say, I think that this, if you look at like the timeline of true crime, of course, this is like at the beginning of like modern true crime. So there was not really anything, I mean, there wasn't anything at all, I mean to say, about a trial, the trial of the teenage accomplices, Wayne Henley Jr. and David Brooks. There's nothing about that, which I think more modern true crime, you know, more modern today true crime would definitely include that kind of stuff in it. There aren't any photographs in this, which is probably something that started trending, you know, later after this book was published. So, you know, it's just a really sad story, but a really well written story. And I do have, I think at least one, I have 2 other Jack Olsen books, I'm pretty sure. Yes. one about Arthur Shawcross, and one about, I can't remember who it is. So I will definitely be reading those, because the way he put a perspective on things about Houston and the area, the heights where most of these boys lived, really made it easier to understand why this happened the way it did and why it went on for so long and stuff like that. So why he chose the boys he chose. So sad, excellent. And then I'd like to tell you a little bit about this book that I read, Her Soul to Take by Harley, LaRoux. When did this come out? I think, 2021. This is about a woman named Raylan. Raylan is going back to a city, well, a very small town that she grew up in, and she's going to college. And her family once lived there, so she's got like this little family cabin, I guess. And then she meets this dark, brooding man on campus who, why is he here? Like, honestly, it doesn't really make sense why he's there. But he is, and he's like a security guard somewhere, but he's not like hired by the college. So it's like kind of weird. And it turns out he's a fucking demon, and he's working for this family who owns much of the town, a wealthy family. It turns out they dabble in the occult, and they're trying to release this like eldritch god that is trapped in the mines beneath the town. And this demon thinks that that is not a great idea. So him and Ray, you know, that's the conflict, is they want to stop this before it happens. And Ray might be the catalyst of this, right? So that is what this book is about. But also, like, they bang a lot. And this is definitely not vanilla-y type of stuff. So I don't know if you're getting into smut. I don't know if this is where you'd want to start, or maybe it is. But I just thought I'd throw that out there. So this, what I didn't like is that the main character is stupid. Honestly, she just like does not make, none of the decisions she makes in this book are thought out. She's very impulsive, to the point of getting herself into danger over and over again. And it's like, why? It's only so this guy can save her, really, is what it, you know, when you think about it. She's only getting into these, she's only stupid so that this guy can save her, which is kind of annoying. And I will say the relationship in this, it seems like they are well matched while they're banging, you know what I mean? But like, apart from that, there does not seem to be any reason why they would like each other. But apparently they really do. I just don't see it. So this was a pretty long book. It was easy to read. I thought it was much more well written than the last smutty book I read, Court of the Vampire Queen. Like, this has a plot that was like fairly interesting. Although it seemed like it really wrapped up too nicely, like Court of the Vampire Queen, but not quite as, it wasn't just like a 2-page thing like that book. Also, I don't know if I'm the right person to judge this, because I've read approximately 2 smutty books. So it could be, you know, people who read this stuff regularly really love it. Probably, if you read this regularly, maybe, or if you read stuff like this regularly, maybe check it out, because I did think it was definitely much better than the last one I read, like I said. So there it is. Okay, next up is Unbury Carol by Josh Malerman. This was published in 2018, and I read this with Michael, the horror gardener, so make sure to check out his channel. In my stats, I considered this a horror book, but it is really light on the horror aspect, I think. So maybe this is like a great jumping point for somebody who's just getting into horror. Not that horror readers wouldn't like this, because I enjoyed this. But it's definitely not a book that's gonna scare you, probably. It kind of is reminiscent to me of like some of Stephen King's stuff that is light on the spookiness. Especially, there is a character in here, we'll get into it, but he really reminds me of someone who would make an appearance in a King book. So this is about Carol, and she is married to this man named Dwight, and Carol and Dwight are really the only two people at this point now, living people, who know that Carol has this thing she does where sometimes she just falls into a coma and she appears to be dead. And this takes place in an old-timey sort of time, like a westerny type of time, where doctors they don't have the technology we do today. So they're counting breaths and stuff like that to see if somebody's living. They're holding a mirror under your nose, you know, to see if you take a breath. And Carol, her breaths are there, but they are far and few between. So few and far between. So like, you'd have to hold a mirror for much longer than customary to see that she's breathing. And the strange thing about this is that she isn't quite unconscious when this happens. She can still hear, and she can kind of recognize what's going on around her, but she cannot move herself and she cannot speak. So Dwight knows this, and at some point, I mean, they've been married for a long time, so it's really like, you know, why did this happen? I guess that was kind of one of my questions. Carol talks about how, like, oh, he's done being one-upped by me or something, but it's like, she's just a nice lady, so how was she married to this guy who was so upset that, like, everybody liked her, that he waited like 15 years to kill her, and she was just like okay being around him for 15 years? I don't know. Anyway, Dwight takes advantage of this next time this happens to Carol with her coma thing. He acts like she's dead and plots to have her buried alive, basically. So that's like the crux of this story. Someone slips out a letter to an ex-lover of Carol's who happens to be like a former outlaw, kind of in hiding, right? So he knows about this thing. Actually, you know what? When I started this out, I said only Dwight and Carol know, but I forgot that also Moxie knows. So he's trying to run to Carol's rescue, but he is quite some ways away, a few days away, and you know, Dwight is trying to have Carol buried as quickly after her death as possible. So it's this, like, I don't know, it's kind of weird because the pacing seems like it should be so fast, but the pacing feels slow, especially for like the intensity of trying to get this woman buried as fast as possible, and also Moxie, the guy who's coming to save her, him trying to get to her as fast as possible. It seems like a weird thing where it's like they're running so fast, they're moving so quickly to have this done, but the pacing of the book doesn't seem like it went by very quickly. But I liked this. There is this other outlaw who gets mixed up in this. His name is Smoke, and he, oh my god, so much reminds me of like a guy who would be in a Stephen King book. He's got these like tin legs because he is missing his legs like after the knee or something like that, and they are full of like accelerants, and he lights things on fire and stuff like that, and he just like says these weird little riddles and makes up these weird little songs, and he's just kind of a little weirdo. So he's probably my favorite character. I would say like this isn't my favorite Malerman book, but it's like good, and I think it goes to show what this author can do, writing this strange world that's like ours, but also not, because it has these like semi-magical elements in them, but like making it feel cohesive and not quite like a fantasy book, you know what I mean? It was good. Yeah, I liked this. Next, I finished Mr. Magic by Kiersten White. This was a 2023 release, and holy hot damn, like this cover is so cool. It's so cool, and honestly, when I think about it, very appropriate for the plot of this book. So this follows, what is her name? She's got a nickname. What is her name? Val. And Val is an adult living on this ranch where she's been for quite some time, but she knows that she didn't always live there, and she's lived there with her father. She does not know what happened to her mother. Her father will not talk about it. Her father will not talk about like their life before they came to this ranch. And Val has, you know, taken some lessons in compartmentalizing things from her father. You know, she doesn't ask about it. She visualizes like this closed door. It's like, this is closed, we don't open it, that's it. We're fine here. We've got everything we need here, you know? But her father dies, and this allows these people who have apparently been looking for her for years to show up, and they say like, oh, we were on this TV show together, don't you remember? And Val's like, no, I don't remember any of this. But like little pieces start coming together. It's like these little songs that Val always sings about herself, like these little like morality lessons almost, that are like rhymes that she's had in her mind, and she always thought that she made them up, but you know, it's like, oh no, this is from this show. We were all on the show together. We were all taught these little riddles for behaving, the lessons for behaving and how we should act and what we should do with our emotions. And you know, pieces start to come back with her, and these people are like, hey, come with us. We're going to actually do an interview about this, and if you'd like to know more about this, this might be a good place for you to start. So she agrees, and it turns out this TV show is very strange because there is no proof whatsoever that this existed. There is no audio, video recordings of this. These children really don't remember much about it, but as they're doing these interviews with this very strange person in the basement of this very strange house where apparently the children lived during the filming of this, or the families lived during the filming of this, they, you know, start to realize that maybe the show, Mr. Magic, wasn't exactly how they remember it, because most of them have, you know, the children who remember being on this show have fond memories of it, but it turns out maybe it's not as nice as they remember. So it's this like really strange little mystery. I thought that it was written really well. I will say there were parts where it's like I was reading it and I was like, what? And then I'd reread it and I'd still be like, what? And then I'd read it again and I'd be like, huh. So sometimes it felt a little fever dreamy, like I wasn't exactly able to put together exactly what I think the author was trying to say, but that didn't really sully my feelings about it. It didn't happen enough for me to be like confused about what was happening exactly, but yeah, it's a little spacey, you know what I mean? A little like maybe the author was eating mushrooms and coming up with this idea. Like it's a little outside of our realm, you know? I don't know. I think maybe people who have read it might be able to understand what I'm saying, but I thought it was really good. I liked it a lot more than her last book, Hide. It's kind of bittersweet, and I really liked like the mystery of it all. It was very strange, really unlike anything I've read recently, so I liked it a lot. And then last, I read this honker. Finally, this is Wayward by Chuck Wendig, and this came out last year, and I put it off and I put it off and I put it off, mostly because it came out at a time where I wasn't doing so well in my head. Anyway, so it was like, do I really want to start this book that I think I will love at a time where like I'm not loving anything at all? No. So I put it off, and then it was like, man, this book is so huge. And I did end up listening to some of it on audio, which actually when I reread Wanderers last year in anticipation of this, I listened to that on audio as well, and it was excellent. This was excellent too, and man, this was a really great conclusion to the story. I'm so glad that this got a sequel, because really where the last book left off, like, it could have. I mean, there's like a hint to something, and you're like, is he really gonna do that? And I thought really he was just gonna leave it like that, but I guess it drummed up enough attention that he wrote a sequel. So here it is. The first book is about this apocalyptic disease called White Mask, and it's really uncanny the way this came about, because that Wanderers came out in 2020, like a month into the pandemic in America. So it was like, this guy's had this idea brewing in his head for probably years while he's writing this, and then as soon as it comes out, like, this is what's happening in our world, it was really nuts. It was really crazy. It also deals with, like, the politics of our world crumbling and what politicians or people who would like to be in power do to further themselves in a time of, like, mass chaos. And that was really weird. And so in the first book, this disease is happening, but there are these people called the sleepwalkers, and they are literally people who just, like, got up and started walking, but they are not conscious. They just move. And if anything tries to stop them, they explode. So you can't stop them from going where they're going, and they end up, like, in this huge herd. Like, they all come together, they all meet up and walk, and they're walking, and some people really don't like this because it's almost like they are the harbingers of this illness, but they don't get it themselves. But then people are wondering, like, are they spreading it? Like, why is this happening? It's a really complicated, great story full of really complicated, excellent characters, and Wayward was no different. I mean, I don't want to get too far into it, I guess. If you want to read Wanderers, I really think you should. It was absolutely one of my very, very favorite books the year it came out, and also, you know, still excellent on a reread. You just pick up stuff and you're like, oh yeah, holy shit. And I just really fucking love Chuck Wendig's books. Anyway, those are the books that I finished in September. Not very many, but you know what? I really did at least enjoy all of them, so that's good. Let me know what you read this month. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them. I'd love to hear. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being patient while my life is a little bit chaotic. Eventually, it will not be so chaotic, and I'll be able to create content more regularly. I think I really just need to, like, schedule and prioritize filming like this, because right now I don't necessarily see it as a priority when I have other stuff to do, and, like, sometimes it can't always be, you know, a priority over more important things, but I miss it, and I miss creating content and talking to you guys about things that I love. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Goodbye.